All right, it is September the 13th, and we're just wanting to do an updated vlog on the boat progress. Doug stopped, I think he started working on this, what you see here, about middle of June when you finished the trailer.
Early to mid-June, whenever the
and then stopped working on it, I guess, at the end of July. And we've just been gone for 6 weeks on a holiday and are just back. So now it's ready for resin, but we thought we'd just maybe chat about the building of the hull and
at this point,
the deck and that sort of thing. I think one of the questions we wanted to talk about was why you decided to build a boat, not just buy one. I mean, we certainly on our trip and other times have seen, you know, cruisers that you know, might do the job, but
so the question is, why did we build the boat instead of just buying a boat?
Yeah.
2 reasons. Probably the big reason is they just don't make what we want. It seems boating, for whatever reason, I assume it's mostly economic and just what people want to do. You either are in a really expensive high-end luxury cruiser, not even maybe luxury, but just a bigger cruiser that's a lot of money and a fairly big boat, or you're in a smaller type of day boat, a bow rider or a party boat, or, you know, a deck boat, that kind of thing. We decided, Lisa and I, that we want something that we can trailer. So if we want to go to some lake, we don't have to cruise all the way there, both for cost and time. And so trailerability is a big thing. And I looked online at what's out there in the way of a trailerable cruiser, and there really isn't much. There's some real kind of funky tugboaty style things that are only, you know, 26 feet long or whatever that you can trailer. And you're really living in a cramped situation. And they're not cheap either, because they're kind of not a high volume boat, so they're expensive. And then once you get into the real cruisers that you can live on, they're no longer trailerable, they're too wide. So we designed something that will be old person friendly. So as we're older, we aren't crawling around narrow passageways and lots of stairs and different levels and slope floors. So it's going to have a flat floor all on one level, obviously steps to get in and out of each end.
A lot of the cruisers, even the bigger ones, there's a lot of steps down, a lot of hunching over, kind of really limited space. But again, like all in the nooks and crannies, so you're crawling and ducking and stairs and narrow openings, and really just was looking for something a little bit more old person friendly, or just, you know, it's just a little bit more easier to get around in.
We have our cuddy now, which we love, but yeah, you're crawling into a little cuddy cabin. And yeah, two of the big things we don't have in the cuddy that we want is a bathroom and decent cooking facilities. On the cuddy, we have a fridge set up on a picnic table with a camp stove, where this boat will have a kitchen in it, a galley, and it'll have a head, a bathroom. And so we'll be totally self-contained. We can anchor, we'll have everything we need, so we can stay for a few days if we want or whatever.
Yeah, anchoring is important, trailering is important, getting around, moving around, having a fridge, not having to rely on ice all the time. That's the problem with the cuddy right now. But it also goes a decent speed. It's not going to go top speed or anything, but you know, houseboat goes fairly slow and it's painful at times.
The hope is, and we'll know for sure once it's in the water and we get to sea, I'm planning on a 250 horse V6 Sterndrive. My hope is we have the ability to cruise at 20 miles an hour. Might be a little optimistic, but I'm hopeful that we can cruise around that, or down at off plane at around 8 miles an hour, 8 or 9, somewhere like that. So it won't be putting along at 6 miles an hour like a lot of pontoon houseboats do.
The other thing is, I think Doug's parents had a boat that if they had friends with them, they could manage it, but on their own, or kids with them, but when they were on their own, they couldn't manage the bigger boat. So we wanted to make sure that we had a bow thruster, which is that hole that's right beside Doug's head, is where the bow thruster goes.
This tube will go through there, the bow thruster mounts on it, and then it sends the thrust of water each way.
Yeah. So we want to be able to manage the boat on our own, because we don't have any friends that like to do things, you know, the way that we do. And again, it's a small space. I It's not,
Yeah.
I mean, you can be able to bring some people from time to time, but for the most part, it's a couple's
It's going
boat.
to be the 2 of us.
And mostly it's just going to be the 2 of us going around. So we needed to make sure that we could manage it on our own. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to use it, really.
Yeah. My initial hope was to make it 29 feet long, but then you decide, oh, we need this and oh, we need that. It ends up, it's 32 feet. It's going to be on the upper end of what would be trailerable, but it's 8'6" wide, so it's a legal trailer width. It's kind of like a 32-foot travel trailer, only it's a houseboat. So, yeah. And the other reason to build it, which there had to be a whole lot of other justification, but what is kind of nice is my dad built 4 houseboats, and I've, ever since I was like 20 years old, had various ideas and drawn plans of houseboats I'd like to build, but I've never done one. So now I'm building myself a houseboat, and I wouldn't do it. And obviously I've never done it till this point because I couldn't justify it. Now it seems like a good idea.
Yeah. So maybe you can just walk us through the boat, what you've done,
Yeah.
what's left to be done.
So what you really can't see right now, but there's a whole structure underneath that this hull is sitting on. It's got crossways supports and lengthwise supports. And I set all that up using a laser or transit to get it perfectly flat so the hull wouldn't have a twist or anything funny going on. And then this boat is sitting on that. It's essentially a giant workbench underneath the boat, and the boat is suspended on that. And yeah, so I built all the boat. I've done some little videos about the various stages of construction. So it's plywood, 1/2 inch on the bottom, 3/8 on the side. It's all tongue and groove at all the joints, and plywood stringers underneath. So these pieces of wood on the bottom, and I've had a few people say, what are those for? They're called strakes, and they are essentially to help the boat track in a straight line. And also on a V hull, much as you're going forward, so the water compared to the hull is sliding off the back, with a V, the water is also going out to the sides. And by having these, it gives the boat a little bit of lift. As the water hits these, it will cause the hull to ride a little higher. So it just makes the hull a little more efficient and a little better speed for the horsepower. And then at the bottom, it's essentially the same as these, but it's called a reverse chine, and the same thing. The V of the boat is going this way, and then at the chine it goes the other way, and again it gives a little bit of lift and helps with the tracking. And so that's what those are for on the bottom. There's 3 on each side. And yeah, so the decks are built.
So the part sticking out there, that's the deck.
So we have our model of the houseboat, which, just to give a visual of what it will look like when it's all done. And so right now it's upside down, and we have the deck built and the hull the way it is. And so yeah, the deck being like that, it just gives you a nicer area to work on while you're locking and such than if you had the curve of the bow and then you can't really reach the lock. There's a bit of a negative if you're in big water. There's the chance of kind of hooking this in a wave, but I don't think we're going to be getting ourselves in much water that's that high. That's, you know, when you're in like 6-foot waves by the time you're going to have something actually grabbing a hold of that. So we're going to try to stay out of those. And yeah, and then we'll have the flybridge so we can drive from up top or down inside. And yeah, so yeah, our granddaughter said she just couldn't understand what she was looking at here, but when I put it that way, she's like, oh, okay, now I see.
Makes it make more sense.
Yeah.
So
I guess another...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Another question you kind of had was, what's this all going to cost?
Right.
And I've tried to price out, obviously the big ticket things. How much is an engine? How much is, you know, a steering system? Each sheet of plywood in there. So I've done up a material list, and I've thrown in 10,000 for miscellaneous, and honestly I feel like that's probably the number that's probably inadequate, but my pricing has it at around $72,000. So realistically I'm thinking we're probably going to spend $80,000, and then probably 3 years of my time in the summers because we're in the Florida in the winter. So I don't make a lot these days though, so for $80,000 we'll have ourselves a boat, and that barely buys a you know, a little party boat in this time. So yeah, so it's a lot of money, but at the same time to get cruising in anything, it'd be a lot more. So
I guess the most frustrating part of just this part, the hull part.
I wouldn't say anything's really been frustrating. Now, it's taken longer than I thought, but you know, when I was a contractor all my life, so I would look at a job, a renovation, and I'd think, well, it'll take this many days to do this part, this many to do that, and I was usually pretty darn close. I was off on this. Everything takes longer than I thought it would, and it's unique, it's finicky, it's, you know, you're playing with all the curves. So it wasn't frustrating, but challenging, obviously, is putting that nice nose on it. You know, all this was straightforward. It took longer than I thought it would take.
And the nose looks beautiful. It's so nice and rounded. And how much glue did you use on that?
Yeah, so...
There's lots of tubs of glue there.
I have bought 2-gallon jugs of high-end waterproof glue. And I'm down to about this much in the second jug. And I'm sure I'll use that up. But yeah, so all this is 1/2 inch. But you would never bend a 1/2 inch sheet of plywood this shape. So it's 2 layers of 1/4 inch. And it's totally glued between the two surfaces, so there's no, you know, it's bonded as if it was a 1/2 inch piece of plywood, but it was done with 2 layers of 1/4. And yeah, when I cut out the bow thruster, which was a little nerve-wracking after I get this all pretty, now I'm going to cut these holes, but absolutely no indication that it isn't a solid, tight bond. This is actually one of the scraps that came out of there, and yeah, it's one piece of plywood 1/2 inch thick, even though it's made from 2 1/4 inch sheets. And this is all 3/8. I was able to bend 3/8 on the sides, so that didn't require that. But yeah, everything, all the stringers are totally glued between 2 layers of 3/4 inch plywood to make them 1.5 inches thick. And everything is glued. These are glued on. Everywhere there's a piece of wood on this entire boat, all this decking stuff, everything is glued and screwed. And then it will all be fiberglassed. So the plan is it will all stay together for lots of years.
And as much as you've watched your dad build some and helped with some of the boats, I think this is your first real time. And tons and tons of research went into preparing to even start the construction. So as much as the construction started in June and, you know, it's taken till the end of July to get to this point, which I still think is very impressive. It's a lot of back and forth into the house, researching, checking, checking your plans, going online. Thank God for YouTube and things like that, right? So
YouTube, and yeah, I spent a lot of hours designing the boat. But you know, you kind of design the boat, but then when you get to the actual details, you have to spend a little more time to sort all that out. So yeah, it all takes time, but it all gets there.
Yeah.
Someday we'll have ourselves a nice boat and we can go do some cruising, sit on the deck and do our final vlog.
Yeah. Just, I don't know if we've ever done a vlog with the Pimple. We call it the Pimple. It's a little addition because this boat is way longer than our garage. So I don't know if you can get a bit of a sense. It goes out to here. So when we made the trailer for the boat, we had to take apart this old trailer. So Doug used all of the parts to make this Pimple, and it's just an extension of the boat. Of the garage, sorry, yeah, so the boat would fit in it.
So here we have the transom, and when it's flipped over, the deck at the back is recessed compared to the side decks and the front deck, so this is going to be a pass-through with a door on it there. And this was kind of a afterthought that I decided we're going to have a propane fridge and stove. Most boats have an electric fridge and an alcohol stove. It takes a lot of battery to run, especially a good-sized fridge. And the alcohol stove's not bad, they work fine. But we're going to go propane, and I kind of always planned the propane tanks would just be out behind, and we're going to have a swim platform. And I had a revelation. We were boating, and I saw a boat with recessed for bumpers. And I went, oh, if I was to recess the propane tanks, they wouldn't intrude on the swim platform so much. Wouldn't that be nice? So that was a couple of days work just to do that. But
it's getting
be recessed in, and then there'll be a cover for them. The swim platform is right about 1/2 inch below this level, and then the propane tanks will be here, and this cover to make it all pretty. And yeah,
So this part, I think, getting into parts of the deck and stuff, that's been a bit more finicky because you have to start to think about where different things are going to go once it's finished.
Yeah, backing for cleats, and yeah, I've got all the deck work and everything is done inside. So that was laying on my back on the ground or crouching down and screwing on all that wood and everything. So that was time consuming and a little awkward, but I figured it really had to be on there before the fiberglass, because I want to run fiberglass right down to here, and then when we flip the boat over and do the rest, I'll bring it over onto that, and then the joint will be hidden behind the rub rail, so no one will ever see it. So yeah.
So the next step is
fiberglass. So now I have to put a coat of resin on the entire hull. That's this afternoon's job. Again, I think it's this afternoon. Maybe it'll be all tomorrow too.
So you've done some fiberglassing in your life, but not this much.
The boys and I built a little 10-foot boat, and that was 18 years ago, and it's doing great. We actually just sold it this spring, and the people who bought it said they loved it. And yeah, so I have done some before, but not a lot. Nothing on this scale. So I'm not unsure about whether it'll work. I'm just unsure of how long it'll take and how big a undertaking it is. But I know it's the way to do it in the end. The one houseboat Dad built, the last one, it was all fiberglassed, and they had that for 15 years, and it was still a good solid boat. It wasn't rotting away or anything. And so if we can get 15 years out of this, I'll be, well, by the time I'm done, I'll be, if we start the 15 years from when the boat's finished, I'll be like 81, and who knows, maybe we'll still boat for another 10 years.
Maybe.
Who knows?
It's going to be old people friendly, so.
That's the whole plan. Make it so we can use it when we're not as spry as we are today.
Some people would argue we are old now, but we don't think so.
No.
Well, it looks beautiful, and the fiberglass will make it look even more beautiful. And anyways, we want to keep a vlog and a journal and pictures and just really try to capture this undertaking.